Okay, I think we may be getting somewhere, so just hold on. Okay, we are ready to go. Mr.
Hi,
Mert.
Sarah.
Hi.
Are we in place?
We may be getting somewhere, so just hold on. You are horizontal. Okay, we are ready to go. Mr.
Hi,
Mert.
Sarah.
Hi.
Are we in place?
All right, Mert, can you hear me? You're horizontal. You need to turn yourself the other way again. Mert, and I can't hear you also.
Can you hear me now?
I sure can. All right.
All right. Hold on a second. Let's put in the gimbal. Now he can just fix it.
Okay.
Welcome. Wait for a second. Okay. I think when we get disconnected, it creates a little bit trouble. So we have to make the setup again. Hiç stres olmayalım. Başladık artık. Sarah.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay. Okay, let's start.
All right, here we go. Okay.
Hi everyone.
Welcome, everybody. And let's
we,
go ahead and get started today with our tour of Ephesus. So all of you watching, thank you for your patience this morning because we had some technical difficulties. But we are joined today by Mert, my friend in Turkey. He's one of my favorite guides that I have ever seen. And he's going to take you around the ancient site. So Mert, just go ahead and take it away.
The live stream from Ephesus, the weather temperature, although it's 6 p.m. in here, still around the 90 Celsius. So it's quite a hot day in Ephesus right now. But the good thing, because of the COVID, we have extremely less visible, less than a dozen, just struck with it. If you ever Google the Ephesus on the internet, or if you're old-fashioned like me, open the books in the library and it does the books. When you search about this amazing city, you always get one important reference: the richest city of the antiquity. What's the source of that richness? Were the Ephesians mining gold and silver in here? No. Were they dealing with the agriculture, getting amazing products, harvesting and exporting? No. What's the source of that riches? One thing: maritime trade. Ephesus was built in the westernmost part of the modern Turkey, Asia Minor, and it was located at the bottom part of a U-shaped natural gulf. This gulf was approximately 4.5 miles length, 3 miles width. It was a natural gulf and natural port, and that's why this is the place where hundreds of ships in antiquity wandering around, coming and bartering their goods between and traders from east meeting with the traders from west. And Ephesus became a major bartering center and became an extremely prosperous city. Plus, in the 7th century BC, the biggest empire in the east, Persians, in order to keep the trade with all the Greeks, starting from Susa, Persepolis, till the Ephesus, they built a giant trade route. Persians, Greeks, and Romans, they always called this trade route as King's Road. But 2,000 years later, our beloved Venetian merchant, Marco Polo, called this amazing trade route as Silk Road. So folks, Ephesus was the first final destination of Silk Road in antiquity, and that's why it became an extremely rich city. But in addition to all those important trade facilities, city has a very important strength. It was a cult center. The major goddess where Ephesians were worshiping was Artemis. But this was not a typical Greek Artemis. This was the Artemis of Ephesus. It was a multitasking goddess. You can see lots of breasts in her body. She is the goddess of fertility, prosperity. She is the goddess of the moon and the movement of the stars. She's a goddess of the wild boars and, of course, delivering of the babies. So she's a multitasking woman. Of course, in the first century AD, I'm sure if she sees the ladies in the 20th century, that she got a lot of competitors, but she got a great temple, the Artemis temple, which was accepted as one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, and looks like today's Vatican or Jerusalem or Mecca of the Muslim people. Here was getting a lot of visitors from all around the Mediterranean Sea for the Artemis cult. And that these kind of things make the city so popular and so unique. I'm gonna just squeeze the whole history into 3 minutes. First, in the 6th century BC, Persians came and took over the city. 200 years later, my favorite guy, Alexander the Great, liberated the city from Persians, but of course, he got his own benefits from the city to subsidize his big military campaign. But in the 2nd century BC, Romans came and captured the whole Asia Minor, including Ephesus. But when the Romans arrived at the city of Ephesus, they didn't appreciate the city as a commercial place. They saw the city as a ATM machine. Cash was flowing all around, Sarah. And that's why they make a one fatal mistake. What was the mistake? They double up the taxes. And those heavily imposed tax triggered a lot of riots. But later on, when the Julius Caesar second time came to city of Ephesus as all the dictator of Rome, he is the guy reduced all the taxes to the standard level. And after that, Ephesus was announced as the capital of Asia Minor. And then the glorious days of the Ephesus restarted. In the imperial period of Rome, Augustus, Tiberius, and then Claudius, and later on, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, Marcus Aurelius, they all came to here. Antoninus Pius, before becoming the whole Roman Empire, he was a governor of Asia Minor. So he grabbed all his imperial skills in that city. In the mid-2nd century AD, Ephesus, after Rome, Alexandria, and Antioch, it was the fourth most crowded city of whole Roman Empire. But in terms of tax paying, this is the #1 city of the Romans. So Romans always treat the Ephesus as their back garden treasury. But what happened to this glorious city and became just the ruins like today? Folks, city got a one major problem. What was that? Environmental pollution. And what's the source of that environmental pollution? We always blame the Romans again. Unfortunately, Romans, since they arrived in here, they slaughtered huge number of trees and they never replanted new ones. And this high level of deforestation triggered a lot of erosion, and the big river Castros silted up the huge Gulf of Ephesus, and the silt stopped all big ships coming here, so trade gone, and that became the end of the city. So people basically lived from late 1st century millennium BC till the approximately 9th century AD in here. The area that we're going to walk together right now is the administrative part of Ephesus. Right here, this theater-style structures we're seeing is the Parliament of Ephesus, folks. This is a building once, there was a giant wall in the front, and there was a wooden roof at the top, which could easily take approximately 1,500 people. And in the daytime, this amazing building, welcome, this is yours. This amazing building was used as a parliament where all the problems of city were discussed right in here. But much later on, at nighttime, it was used as an audience. Unfortunately, the major earthquakes in the 2nd, 4th, and 6th century ADs, the building couldn't survive. The major wall in the front just tumbled down. And after that, it was used for a short period of time as an open-air church. And then later on in the 9th century AD, it was abandoned.
So, hey, Mert,
area
can I
on,
ask a question?
yes, yes,
How
of course.
is the size of this theater compared to other theaters in the Roman world?
This is a place where we can get 1,500 people, but the great theater Ephesus we will see together gets 25,000 people. It's accepted as 25,000 people. It's one of the largest ancient theaters in the world. with the
Wow.
Greek style, Greco-Roman style theaters. Welcome, souvenirs. Now, guys, on your left-hand side, you're going to see an open area. This open area once surrounded by 2 rows of columns and the size of basically 1.5 soccer fields. And folks, this is the area what we call the Forum of the Ephesus. What is basically the Forum? The citizens were coming early in the morning. And this is the place where they used to talk about politics. They used to make all business agreements in here. And this is the place, a little bit, they chat about the philosophy. But of course, the most important thing, people were making their major business agreements in here. And of course, ladies, bad news. This is an area where ladies are not really welcome. But there's a one special type of ladies. Their numbers are limited. You can see them always strolling around. And whose are those ladies? Boys behave. They're not the bad ladies. Those are Vestal virgins who actually act in that area as IRS of the Romans. So they were officially the tax collectors strolling in the Forum of the Ephesus as well. Welcome. Let's walk through the here. And what's the population of Ephesus? People always ask me in heydays. We're assuming that approximately 300,000 people lived around the 2nd century AD. And there are lots of ethnical groups living in here. There were Jews in here, Armenians, Arabs, Egyptians. There were lots of Asians, according to inscriptions we understand, coming from probably Pakistan, Afghanistan territory for a spice trade. And of course, the major minority in here, but the ruler class, were the Romans. So what's the spoken language in Ephesus? There are so many languages were spoken. We discovered inscriptions in Aramaic. We heard that there were so many different languages were spoken in here from the different travelers of the antiquity. But the major language, of course, spoken in Ephesus was the Greek. Greek, as we know, is the lingua franca of the antiquity. That was a common language for business, science, and art over there. So actually, Latin never ever became a major language in here, like in Italic Peninsula. Here, Greek was always the major spoken and trade language of the people.
So
Let me
Mert,
introduce you to the town hall of Ephesus. Yes.
so when you go to, if people are visiting Turkey, everybody knows about Ephesus, but this is only one of many Greek and Roman ancient sites nearby Izmir. How many would you estimate that there are nearby?
The Western Turkey, I can easily tell the Western Turkey, Sarah, is the size of Kentucky, and Turkey is the size of whole Texas and plus 1/4 of California. We get approximately 600 ancient settlements right in here. Total
Wow.
number of the Greek and Roman cities in Turkey is much more than the total number of the all Greek and Roman cities in Greece, plus Italy, plus Spain, plus France, and plus Tunisia. So probably in every 15 miles you drive in here, if you dig the ground, you can find small or large size of ancient settlements.
And
That's
that,
quite interesting. We
that
got
was,
just 169 ancient theaters in here.
that was one of the most impressive things to me about Turkey.
Sorry?
One of the most impressive things about Turkey to me was that I was shocked as a person who does tours in Roman sites all the time as a profession. I had no idea. I had no idea how many incredible ancient sites, Greek and Roman sites, there are in Turkey. There are, yeah, as you said, they're everywhere, and there's more than you find even in Italy, which is pretty surprising.
Oh, yeah. But Sarah, don't forget the fact that number one, the land of modern Turkey, we and Greeks, we call Anatolia, but in biblical sources, it was mentioned as Asia Minor. It was a crossroads. If you want to access the Middle East, which was very fertile in those times, and if you want to access the Silk Road or Africa or a different part of the Balkans, you have to cross from Asia Minor. Plus, this area, and still today, blessed with water. Yes, we don't have an oil, but wherever you dig the ground still, around 120 feet, you can get the fresh, drinkable water. And all around the mountains of Ephesus, Ephesus was so lucky about one thing. water. Wherever they get the ground, there are lots of springs. So they always get the fresh, drinkable water. And that's why the city, number one, get the water. Number two, get a good arable lands. Number three, they get a trade. And number four, and the most important thing, Volkan, can you come closer a little bit? City was built on the slope of two mountains. Right in here, you can see. So that's why it was a defendable city. And right in front of us, you can see the lowlands, which once it was the Gulf of Ephesus. So please use your imagination once people in those area in front of us, the ships were sailing around, people were rowing, swimming, and fishing. But today, it was one of the most fertile land because rivers silted up. And we cultivate cotton, artichoke, like okra and peach, pomegranates, which is a major crops in here today. Right in front of us, folks, you can see the two tapered columns with the Doric capitals. And of course, thousands of years ago, there were six of them standing here with a massive pediment. And here was the town hall of city. This is the place where governor of Asia Minor uses his main seat. And on the right-hand side, the offices next to his major welcoming site was the office of the Vestal Virgins. Now, Volkan, can you make a plain look through the here and look at the amazing urban planning? We have a town hall in here. Adjacent building is the parliament, and right in front of the parliament and the town hall, you get the forum. So this is the administrative part of Ephesus, and this administrative part was built in the highest point of the city, highest plain point of the city. So it was very defendable, and it was easy to operate so many things right in here. Let's get in the real original marble streets, which haven't been restored almost for 2,000 years. By the way, city was extremely lucky about one thing: marble. Roughly 4 miles through the north side, we get marble quarries, and these are the places we obtain the blue, gray, pink, and beige color marbles. That's why, imagine 2,000 years ago, everywhere walls were coated, streets were paved with marble. So that makes the city extremely glorious, because marble was an expensive material in that time as well. And when you walk around the streets in Ephesus, apart from marble, you can see also one interesting material. And this material is granite. Some of the columns you can see all around, these are all public offices, by the way, on your right-hand side. Volkan buraları hızlı geçeceğiz. Are the granite, but we didn't have the granite in Asia Minor those days. So that indicates us of one important thing. Roughly 2,000 years ago, Egyptians were coming here a lot, and Egyptians were making a lot of trade with Ephesians, and we discovered so many inscriptions in the city, which talks about the people from Alexandria were coming here and bartering a lot of goods. All right, from now on, the street that we are walking is going to take us to the very famous square dedicated to the famous Roman Emperor Domitian. Let's walk over there, and during that short walk, if there are any questions, I would like to answer those questions, Sarah. How's it going, by the way?
Everything's
I've never
good.
done virtual tour before, so
No, you're
it's
doing
also a little bit different for me.
Job.
All right.
Going
Any questions so
We'll
far?
take a break for questions in just a few minutes, okay?
Okay. And Volkan, can you show the marble payments right through here? There's a shade a little bit, maybe our audience can see it in a better way. Right, those ones, especially those ones, the horizontal ones, yeah. Folks, if you look at the streets, you can see the indentations. Get it out of here. Those indentations are all original marble. Mainly is a slope. If you look at it carefully, it's around like 25 degrees. And in a rainy day, there's no roof in here. So that street could be extremely slippery. And of course, in those days, they never got REI, Solomon, good shoes with the good grips. And that's why, in order to prevent people slipping on the marble floors, they carved those indentations and they created a quite good traction. And one more thing I want to show you in here, Volkan, just point out, Volkan is my mate again, helping me. He's a tour guide too. You can see this is the drainage system of the whole forum. The water canals were bringing water, and underneath of that street, guys, use your imagination. There's a canal. We're taking just the rainwater. And there are so many places we get the pipes, the big clay pipes, where the drinkable water was distributed all around the city as well. And after that, we have also sewage canals. And also, she's my friend, the head of the excavations in Ephesus, Sabina Lepster, professor from University of Vienna. She says that all these water distribution systems were not mixing with each other. The guys who lived here 2,000 years ago were expert aqua engineers, and they created an amazing system in here. Let's walk through this beautiful marble city. And dear Sarah.
Mert, can you tell me,
Yes.
Normally how many people would be in Ephesus right now on this kind of a day?
In a typical day, if you get the cruise ships, run tours like Rick's Teas, we get approximately 15 up to 20,000 people visit. But nowadays, if you get the 500, that's a lucky day.
Holy
So
cow.
nowadays is great. Yeah.
Wow.
Nowadays is a lucky days.
And
Okay.
also, Americans are allowed in Turkey right now. Is that correct?
Americans are coming. Yeah. Remember 2 weeks ago, Robin, she was here from the Rick's Teas office. 1.5 months ago, Jesse Blackwoods and his girlfriend, they were a fiancé, they were all in here. We sometimes people from especially LA and San Francisco, because we get direct flights from there by Turkish Airlines, of course.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, so does anybody who is on our panel today on the call, do you have any questions you would like to ask Mert? So go ahead and unmute yourself. Raise your hand if you got something you'd like to ask.
Until that time, I want to show you something. Sarah, would you like to see a good six-packed and full monthly Greek guy?
Yes.
Yeah, guys, I would like to introduce you Hermes. Hermes is the god of the thieves, the god of the robbers, the god of the scientists, the god of the trade. He's a multitasking god. And he got a helm. He's a winged helmet and winged sandals, as you can see, because he is a messenger god. He takes everything, he learns everything, what's going on in the earth, and informed the god Zeus, the Lord of the Lords, and he got the orders from him and passed through the mortals. He is one of my favorite god as well. No.
So let's one
Any
question
questions?
that I've got here. I've got a question. Is
Okay.
quarantine involved if you're coming from the United States?
No. Americans, as in the airport, they measure your temperature, and after that, if you feel bad, they give you the COVID test, but otherwise you're free. So that's why people, not in the big numbers, I got a couple of friends are traveling with American guests right now in Istanbul. Let's walk a little bit up there. Sarah, Ephesus is known as one of the most important 3 biblical cities in the world of Christianity. This is a city where part of the Bible was created. And I'm going to introduce you one building, actually. Because of that building, today in the New Testament, we have a book called Book of Revelation. Right in here, the building that we see is the famous Domitian Temple, and this area we are right now is the Domitian Square. And as you know, Emperor Domitian, he was a quite vicious Roman emperor, and during that time there were serious persecutions to the Christian and Jewish people started. And during the construction of this imperial cult temple, where emperor declared himself as God, one person living here, he make a big objection, and he created a big terror in the city. Who's this guy? The most beloved apostle of Jesus, Apostle John. The most beloved, the youngest one. Jesus always called him as the son of the thunder. And the governor of Ephesus, He could easily crucify him, but nearly 10% of population at that time was Jewish. But there was a big Jewish community living in here, and he didn't want to deal with another Jewish riot. So guess what happened? Apostle John was exiled from here. And in the island of Patmos, he was in silence for 2.5 years. And during that time, he got the revelation from the Lord. So, and he wrote the famous book today that you can read as Book of Revelations. And if you look at all the cities in Book of Revelation, they're all the cities around the periphery of Ephesus. These are the cities which is Smyrna, which is modern Izmir, Pergamon, Thyatira, Laodicea, Sardis, Ephesus. These are the 6 cities in Turkey. Only 1 city is in the United States, Philadelphia. I'm just kidding. Even Philadelphia, the first one was only 60 miles in the north of Ephesus. So John, actually, when he getting inspiration from the Lord, he make the communication with using the letters. And because of that building, basically, we have today the book of Revelation. So it's a quite interesting biblical reference. And of course, later on we will talk, this is the city of Paul. Paul lived in the city for 2.5 years. So basically, since the beginning of our live stream tour, everywhere we're walking once, Paul was strolling on these places. And sometimes church groups come and always ask me, Mert, why Paul chose to live in here for 2.5 years? He's a guy traveled almost 10,000 miles in antiquity in 3 big missionary journeys, but why Ephesus became his own Jerusalem? There are a couple of reasons. Number one, there was a big Jewish community. And when you look at the pattern of Paul, he always looked for Jewish communities first and passed the message of Christ. Second thing, there were lots of Greeks who are not pagans, who like the concept of worshiping the one God. These are the people we call today in biblical language proselytes. So there was a big number of proselytes in here. And the third major reason is Ephesus is a multinational city, a multi-ethnical city. There were so many people from different part of the world. So Paul could easily make his missionary facilities, and he was born as Roman citizen. That was a great advantage. By the way, I would like to introduce this gorgeous lady to you guys. This is famous Greek goddess called Nika. Nika, she's the goddess of victory and goddess of success. She is a winged goddess. On her left hand, she's holding a reed made by the bay leaves. But if you look at her right hand, she's holding a palm branch, which is always another symbol of victory. We get an urban legend says that the owner of Nike came here around the mid-70s, and he saw the wrinkle in her dress, which looks like a swoosh. That's why people claim that, wow, the swoosh was actually originated from here. But come on, guys, we know the fact. Swoosh was actually designed by a lady from Portland, Oregon. So there's a lady designer. It's not from here originally, but we Turks and Greeks, we like to say, pardon?
It's a great tour guide story. And that reminds me so much of the way it's funny, because having a really good quality tour guide when you travel is so important, because I will bet you tour guides there who are not so great have told people that, right?
Yeah, but to be honest with you, like we're Greeks and Turks. We like to say everything comes from Turkey, everything comes from Greece. So like that, it's a part of the ordeal, of course, but these are the realities. But I have another interesting story for you. Sarah, it was roughly 5 years ago. I was doing one of my Rick's tour. It was in the July tour, you know, that we call them as teachers tour, because teachers can travel in that time. I got plenty of teachers, and I was actually talking right in here and explaining one of the public fountains. Volkan, can you show it? And right, probably I was just telling fountains are quite important for people because there were not pipes going everywhere, and people who cannot reach the fountains, they can't just access the water. And my two members said, of course, probably they like to hear the voice of water. And while we were giggling, one two member lady said, and they like to probably listen to Elvis. And everybody looked at her. Elvis? She said, yes, Elvis was here. And we got kind of panicked. How do you know? She said she got an archaeological proof. Come closer and look at the inscription. And can you tell me what it writes in here? I love Elvis. Can you see that? It's just a coincidence of the Roman letters. But now we get a theory. We believe that every Elvis recycle, just like reborn in every 500 years. First time he got appeared in
That's
Ephesus
a terrible joke, Mert.
I know.
Hey, can I
know that
ask you a question,
Elvis is,
group? Our
yes, of course.
viewers is asking, did the city have traditional baths? How was sanitation managed?
Okay, we so far excavated only 16% of Ephesus. And in that percentage area people excavated, they discovered more than 6 different Roman baths. So, which means that bathing is extremely available. Probably if we complete the whole excavations, we can find much more Roman baths through the year. And nearly every Roman bath territory, there was also one located latrine. So, which means people could access the toilets easily as well. I'm talking about 2,000 years ago, where sanitation and cleaning was not a very popular thing. But one of the most important things which Romans brought the civil world is a bathing culture. And that's why maybe we Turks took this as an advantage and we learned it from Romans quite well. And we still keep the tradition of Roman baths as Turkish baths. Later on in the future, if you want, I would like to make a good video and live stream from a Turkish bath to you.
Are you serious? You're not serious,
yeah,
are you?
why not? Why
Okay.
not? Why not?
Hey, can I also?
I will just get exfoliated.
I'd like to let Barbara go ahead and ask a question. So Barbara, can you?
Of course, please.
Hang on one sec, Mert. Go ahead.
Hey, Mert, I was wondering, was the earthquakes that were in that area, were they from, is it volcanic in that area, or is that plates of meeting or something?
That's a very
good. Had so many earthquakes.
That's an amazing question, but I can use a very simple answer is both.
Okay.
How? Western Turkey and all those Cyclades Islands. It looks like what's a famous earthquake fault in Western California?
San Andreas.
San Andreas is exactly like a San Andreas. We have a serious fault in here. Number one reason for the earthquake, of course, this fault. But the second thing, Santorini is a famous Greek island, and this area once it was active volcanic territory. So, which means that there are lots of explosions happen in Santorini, triggered lots of earthquakes in this territory. And one of the major earthquakes happened is actually in the 9th century AD. Many Asian Minor coastal cities like Miletus, Ephesus, they all tumbled down during the big volcanic eruption, and the earthquakes triggered by this volcanic eruption as well. So we get the effects of the both major sources. And still Turkey is a big earthquake country, and especially in the Sea Marmara, every 100 years, we get one big earthquake around the 7.6, 7.8. So earthquake is part of our fate, actually. Let's go this way, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just marveling at the technology right now, you guys, that we can hear Mert fine as he walks. We can interact with him. We can ask him questions. This is what a time to be alive. Even if we can't be there,
exactly.
we to be there. It's
and what a day. The weather and light is getting much better. Right now, Wolfgang, can you show the Hercules Gate? Actually, through here, the famous street, which is like a Fifth Avenue of an Ephesus, Crater Street, was actually kind of blocked with a monumental gate, which was dedicated to Hercules, who was one of the semi-gods in the Greek mythology. But this gate once, there was a big arch, and in the middle of the arch, there was a frieze of Nika was standing, and the right and left sides were filled with beautiful friezes. And why, in the middle of the busy street, this guy has built such a narrow gate? Of course, one reason. The upper part we have been walking so far was a pedestrianized part of the Ephesus. But all this commercial street, Wolfgang, can you come closer and show the whole street through here? And this is the Fifth Avenue of the Ephesus. And guys, this is an area where there are lots of shops on the right and left, lots of chariots were all around. So there was a big trade facilities going on here. Let's go and walk them. And that's why there are lots of different places in here. Lots of all these ones you can see. Once there were the shops. That's why I call here is the Fifth Avenue of Ephesus, actually. And Sarah, another interesting thing, Ephesus really looks like New York. Why? Here once was the commercial capital of the ancient world. New York today is the financial capital of the world. And New York is a very multinational city, ethnical city. Ephesus was as well. And as I told you before, there was a big Jewish community, Coptic community, and they discovered even the one inscription they mentioned about the spice people. But of course, they're not the spice girls from London. They were probably Asians coming here for spice trade, and that's why the city was so rich and full of all these people from different part of the world. Welcome, by the way. Let's show people what we did so far. We start the walk from the upper part. We're now in the middle of that kind of slopey street, which is the major commercial street. And then here's the library, the great theater of Ephesus. Can you see the size, Sarah?
Yeah.
It's a mega building. And
Yeah.
we will pass nearby the port soon. I hope we are doing well because again, me and Volkan, we never did the virtual tour before. We kind of get like a little bit.
Hey, Mert, let's just take a heartbeat here, just one quick sec to just take a break, and let's see if anybody else would like to ask a question. If you'd like to ask a question, you can unmute yourself, and you can ask a question of Mert if we've got any comments or questions.
I have another one.
Go for it, Barbara.
So I was wondering where did the people live that were doing commerce or they were selling things? Did they live near the shops? And then also a second question is, when did the Greek language disappear as the main language for the lingua franca for all of the trade and all of that stuff?
Amazing questions. And unfortunately, Volkan cannot hear those questions. That's why I will also repeat the questions. Number one question is, where's the residential part of the Ephesus? Let me show you with this way. And in all those slopes through the here, which we haven't excavated yet, and there's a big mountain I will show you nearby the theater area soon, is an area where people build their houses. During the excavations in 1967, archaeologist team discovered a place called the Terrace Houses of Ephesus. If you look at the left side through my finger, you can see a special protective plexiglass walls. This is the area we discovered Roman villas. There are 6 villas built as a semi-detached, and these are all 2-storied houses like a condominiums. These are the luxury houses in Ephesus, of course, the luxury houses for the late 1st century and the 2nd century AD. Today, I'm not going to take you over there because of the limitation in the visits, they close it. But it was one of the important places where we can show the visitors in a non-COVID times as the important residential part of the Ephesus. Second question, lingua franca, the Greek. Greek was a very popular language, and Greek was a language of the New Testament till 5th century AD. But in 5th century, the two church became two competitors, Church of Rome and Church of Constantinople. And during that time, the major separation became in the language, and Church of Rome started to translate and use the New Testament in Latin language. And that's why Western world followed the Latin and all Latin-based language, and Eastern world and Slavic world accept the Greek as their religious biblical language. And then Greek became the language of the East, and the Latin became the language of the West. That's how the separation went after 5th century AD.
Hey,
By the way,
question there from one of our participants on the Zoom call.
hi, Luke.
And the question is, oh yeah, Luca's joining us. Luca's a big fan of Mert. a question from one of the people on our call. Did all ethnicities have access to all areas of the city, such as the theater, or was there any type of caste system in existence back then?
In Ephesus, in a typical Greek world, there's no caste system. No, no. Like a Jews get a lot of privilege. Even we got some Jews who was like Roman governors in antiquity. So there's no kind of like restrictions to the, except slavery. Slaves are different. And I would like to talk about slavery when I take you to the Agora section as well. By the way, water is an important thing, and city of Ephesus is decorated with so many fountains. And this fountain that we are standing right now in front, it was probably one of the largest fountain in a whole city dedicated to Emperor Trajan. It's basically 30 feet wide, over 20 feet high. It was built from pure marble. It got right and left wings and lots of niches, where the statues of Dionysus, Aphrodite, and so many other minor goddesses were over there. But in a major niche, if you look at it carefully, and I'll try to like zoom if there's a possibility, but I don't know how to do it, but learn later on. There's a globe you can see and a feet. And we strongly believe that, and from the ancient descriptions, and this is the area where once there was a statue of Emperor Trajan. He was like a half naked, 1 foot on the floor, 1 foot at the top. He was just acting like he is the patron of the world. He is the, can you hear me, Sarah?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay, hello?
Yes.
Okay, he's like the king of all the earth, but I always tell that probably he's saying that he's the first national Italian soccer player, just giving his pals over there.
Well, Hadrian is my favorite Roman emperor if I had to choose one, because he was an architect.
Hadrian is mine too.
Emperor.
Hadrian was his nickname, Greek Link. He's an amazing guy. And he's the first Roman emperor with a beard and mustache. So we Turkish men, we appreciate him a lot in that case. By the way, welcome to kind of Harvey Nichols, or like the famous shopping mall in Ephesus. This is an area where upper parts were the Roman villas, but in the lower parts, Wolfgang, can you show the mosaics a little bit? It's right over there around the mosaics, just cleaning it for you guys. And it's an amazing mosaics, 10 different shops, Sarah, and each shop's differentiated with different mosaic patterns. Looks like, look at the quality. Wow. These are like a stone carpets painted all around here. And in the mosaic art, as you know, these are all the beach pebbles. They intentionally use beach pebbles because you don't need to dye them. They just get the natural color right in here. Beautiful. And you can start to see the famous Celsus library from the outside, which is a beautiful structure waiting us. So we're going there in a second. But before going there, I would like to show you two important buildings. One is the Temple of Hadrian, so-called Temple of Hadrian, and the second one, Temple of Relief, which are the toilets. Let's go. Walk over there.
You have to go and worship the porcelain goddess, right? Maybe that's
yeah, because we just need. By the way, guys, while we walk around there, can you show the grounds? You have to please look at the ground, because there are lots of potholes. There are lots of we have a lot of problems. Okay, guys, look. Right in here, we get the 2 columns and 2 pillars carrying a perfect pediment. Upper part of the pediment is damaged because of the earthquake. But if you look at the lower part, there's a beautiful Roman arch. And if you look at the Roman arch and the keystone, there's a famous Greek goddess called Pica, where the Romans called her as Fortuna. She is the goddess of fortune, goddess of good luck, greeting you. But if you look at the main wall, there's a curly hair lady. She is facing you, or lady, or someone else. We have 2 ideas about that. Number 1 says it's the boy lover of Hadrian, Antoninus, who's a quite curvy, hairy person. And in Rome, in the National Museum, we have his giant sculpture. maybe it's true, but today the many Austrian archaeologists who are in charge of excavating Ephesus, they claim that this is famous river goddess called Flora. She is a kind of goddess of fertility, one of the minor goddess in Greek world. That's the image of the Flora right over there. So you got two stories in here to put in your pocket, and it's a small temple-like monument dedicated to Emperor Hadrian from early 2nd century AD. This is the entrance of the terrace houses, which is unfortunately closed nowadays. And now we're going to enter the famous Temple of Relief, ladies and gentlemen. Temple of Relief, which is our latrines, are very important, functional part of the Ephesus in antiquity. Let's clarify a couple of things. Number one, you have to pay money in antiquity. They're not free of charge. Number two, tell Hadrians, ladies, you were not allowed to use the latrines. But starting with Hadrian, Sarah, you should make him really your favorite emperor, because Hadrian was the person who led the woman to use the public toilets as well.
How
The
kind.
public toilets in Asia Minor, they're all square plan, but there are sometimes the rectangle shaped ones as well. And there was always an open air courtyard in the middle. The main reason to get rid of the bad odor and the smell in here, and the columns right in here and between the walls, that was a roof, which created a nice sheltered territory. So people who are using the latrines were relaxed, easygoing, and they were either enjoying with the shade, and they were rain-proof toilets, we can say. Look at the seats. Look at the original seats. Come closer, Volkan. So people were sitting shoulder to shoulder, cheek to cheeks, knee to knees. It's a very public, as you can see. As Mina always said before, probably they were reading their tablets over there. But the important thing, look at here, there's a canal where there's a fresh water flowing continuously. Now, it's going to be very TMI, but if you get number one, it's easy. You just sit down, pull your toga, leave it. If you get number two, we get a big issue. You need to clean yourself. How those guys were cleaning? Where are the toilet rolls hanging? There were no toilet rolls, guys, in that time. They were using sponges with the sticks. In each corner, there was a big bucket, imagine, with full of sticks with the sponges. So you randomly pick up one of the stick and sponge, sit over there, dedicate your number two to the goddess of relief, and after that, dip the sponge to the clean water, clean yourself, dip the sponge and clean the sponge, and put it back to buckets. So those sponges were used by thousands of people, probably hundreds of times. I know for the people of 20th century, 21st century, so I know you and me, we were born in 20th century, the last part, of course, but it was kind of like a shocking thing. Because don't forget, toilet papers were the contributions of the Germans.
The joke
Hello?
is that that's the origination of the phrase in English, getting the wrong end of the stick. I don't know.
I never heard that before, but
tour guide story.
yeah,
But I've heard that's where that comes from. The other one that I've heard that comes out from English is bench warmer, because the patricians
bench warmer, yeah.
sent somebody in to come and sit on the loo because it was marble and warm their place before they'd come and sit down. So that's another one that I have heard. I again, could be a tour guide story, that bench warmer.
Yeah, but the wrong side of the stick, I like that, and I would like to use it in the future.
I do have a question
Anyway,
from our audience, and the question is,
yes.
what did women do before they were let into the public toilets? Did they just stay home?
There are big jars in the junctions of the small alleys in the big streets. And those jars were called as gusto. So the word gastronomy is related with that word, actually, etymologically. And they were just squatting around and doing their toilets over there.
Oh,
And at the nighttime, the servants were collecting all these gustos, cleaning them. And those times were used as fertilizers, manure, oil, and they were just using for the public purposes. I want to show you Christian influences after 4th century AD. There's so many structures you can see, cross were signed all around. And because here was the one of the cult city of the Christians, of course. Benim kulakta şey bitiyor. Volkan biraz hızlı ol. Now, guys, we're walking to the most important city in Ephesus, our most important building, the worldwide famous Celsus Library. If you ever watch any ads in TVs about Turkey or any books, even the Lonely Planet, you can always see this amazing building, which was built in 2nd century AD. Within the 2.5 years, survived till the early 6th century AD, and after an earthquake, it tumbled down, and it was reconstructed with the support of German and Austrian architects. And the reconstruction took basically 4 years, all the pieces, and nearly 85% of the pieces you can century AD. Who is this person, Julius Celsus Ptolemeus? He was a governor of all Asia Minor. He was a well-respected person, and he was preferred by all the Ephesians as a real possessive governor. And when he died, they wanted to immortalize his name. And in order to immortalize his name, they decided to build a big mausoleum. His son, who was member of the city council at that time, he was a leader of that project. It took 2.5 years, but 2.5 years later, they just realized that it's a waste of big size building in the heart of city for a deceased former governor. What's the best way to repurpose it without dishonoring that person is just converting to library. He's still buried inside, but the most important thing, all the interior plan changed. They built it with a double wall technique, and they built lots of wooden boxes all around, and they collect different books from all around the Ephesus and the cities over there, roughly 12,000 scrolls, and they started to use it as a library. And Celsus Library, after the biggest one in Alexandria and the second major one in Pergamon in Asia Minor, it was the 3rd largest library of the ancient world. Let's get closer to this amazing building, because this facade is really unique, has some interesting architectural features, and it also always resembles one major structure. Can you hear me? Because
Yeah.
Volkan is getting, okay. It exactly looks like the treasury building in Petra, Jordan. There's an architectural style in antiquity called Palladium style architectural form, where you can see the monumental gates and the big pillars, all composite columns and adorned with lots of lotus leaves, acanthus leaves, and Roman eagles. And you can see all these details in amazing structure. Couple of interesting architectural tricks. Number one, and most important, this building is lining backwards roughly 3 degrees. And because of that, it looks much larger than its original size. It's a kind of Disneyland effect. And although second story looks shorter, actually both stories are in the same height. But the lower story, the portals are much higher. There are only 3 short windows in the upper story, and that also created an optical illusion, which makes this building so unique. And there are 4 niches in the lower part, and there are 4 statues you can see. Each statues are named, and each name symbolizes the virtues of the Roman rulers. Number 1 on the left called Sophia, which means wisdom. Number 2 called Arete, which means the good virtue. Number 3, Ennoia, which means deep thoughts. The English word annoying actually comes from that word as well. And number 4 is episteme, expertise. These are all the virtues of the Roman rulers and Roman governors. I want to show you a couple of interesting details, which was actually discovered by an archaeologist team. And one of the most interesting thing is, underneath of the 3rd column on the right, there's a beautiful Jewish menorah carved, probably around the 2nd century AD. That's one of the greatest proof that the Jews were coming here and using this library. Probably around the mid-second century, there was a tired Jewish guy. After reading the book and making shopping in Agora, he just sit here and, can I show you the area? Well, come and sit down for a while. Probably he was chilling out, looking all the people returning back to their home, right in here, and with his dagger, he carved this beautiful menorah right in here. Second interesting thing, look at the beautiful Latin inscriptions right over there. Siz de gelin kaçırmayın. And if you look at those Latin inscriptions, they didn't use the Latin bars, but the provinces of Asia. There are a couple of names like Cappadocia, the place where we did hot air ballooning, remember? Galatia, which is a very important biblical district where Ankara, the capital city of Turkey, is located. Armenia, can you see that?
Yep.
That's one of the greatest proof that Armenians have been living in the last 2,000 years. So in the boy lover of Hadrian, he was from there. So these are the all list of the city, the regions in Asia Minor. Hello, my friend. We got a friend. What's your name? Iran. Where are you from, Iran? Turkey. Which city? My city. He's from Istanbul also. Which district? Which school are you attending? Koşul Bilfen. Oh, Bilfen. Good luck. It's a tough school. Which means you will end up in Robert College. Good. Inshallah. Let's walk. From now on, please get your Costco cards ready because we're going to Costco of Ephesus. Welcome to Agora. Guys, Agora is the commercial district of the city. Can you hear me, Sarah, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're
Hello?
still, yep.
Okay. Like right now, just look at that. We're in the middle of the most important commercial district. It's a square-shaped giant Agora. We have 124 shops surrounding all around here. Volkan ses bitecek. O yüzden yakınlaş. And you see a lot of columns, 2 rows of columns in here. Those columns were very functional because between the columns and the shops, there was a timber roof. So people, both shoppers and shopkeepers, were just what they were doing. They were underneath of the shade, doing all their shopping facilities. And of course, in those shops, they were selling all more durable goods and expensive goods like jewelries, fabrics, good quality of leathers, different type of jars. So these are the material, the items they were selling in those shops. But the open area, this open space was full of stalls. And of course, in those stalls, we have all the fast moving consumer goods. And what I mean, wine, of course, which is the bread, fish, poultry, meat, fruits, vegetables, spices, and one more thing, slaves. So what we know from many inscriptions, Ephesus was known as one of the major slavery trade center of the antiquity. And this place is also very important biblically. How do we know? Actually, Acts chapter 19 is a very important book, which is all about the adventures of Paul in Ephesus. Paul, during his second missionary journey, he met with a couple called Priscilla and Aquila. They were the expelled Jews from the city of Rome. They were also tent makers like Paul, and they met in Corinth. And Paul desperately wants to come to Ephesus. And he brought Priscilla and Aquila with him. And guys, they were the tent makers. And that's why many famous biblical historians, and my favorite one, Joseph Lynch from Ohio State, they claim that this is the place probably Priscilla, Aquila, and Paul were building their small stall. They were weaving their tents right in here and spending at least a couple of hours every day for a production, because Paul was a Pharisee Jew, which means apart from being a priest, he was he got an art, and he was also working and sponsoring his all missionary journeys with using his tent making skills. And Also, if you read the further chapters of the Acts chapter 19, verses 18 and 19, in those places, Paul started to make a lot of miracles in Ephesus, like Jesus did in Galilee and Jerusalem territory. And after that, Paul became extremely famous. And one of the stories says there was a Jewish guy, Scavia, and his 7 sons. They were doing exorcism. And one poor guy got captured by the one evil, and they were doing the exorcism. And suddenly the evil spirit started to speak and say that, I know Jesus, I know Paul, but who the heck you are? And he started to beat all the Scavia and his 7 sons. And that made Paul so famous. And that's why what we definitely know from Acts chapter 19, verses 18, all the soothsayers, oracles, and magicians, they brought their very expensive books, which worth 60,000 drachms, and they burned in the Agora. So this is quite interesting, and many biblical historians, they interpret it as Paul. He actually won a big victory against the pagan goddess Artemis bride in here. So that was a victory of Jesus over the pagan god, and that's why that created a big riot in the city. Because one of the major guys running a shop in here, his name is Demetrius, and he is a silversmith. He's the head of all the silversmiths, and they were basically, their major income is making the silver statues of Artemis and selling all around. But there was a big problem. They were not able to make the silver statues anymore because Paul and his friends, Timothy, Titus, Silas, Luke, Priscilla, Aquila, they were telling everyone, do not worship those idols. They are human made. They don't hear you. They can't hear you. The God is much bigger than that. And
Hey,
of course,
Mert,
they also dropped.
Mert,
So the reaction was actually not about beliefs. The reaction was financial, and there was a big riot started in here.
Mert, we
And this
can't hear you
riot
well.
was ended up in the theater. Demetrius and friends, roughly 20,000 people, they marched the theater of Ephesus, which we can see from the right-hand side, and I will take you a good place to see that later on. And they invited Paul for confrontation. And Paul accepted that. But when Paul came
Can't hear
here,
me, so I don't know how to tell him his earbuds have
there were
died.
Roman guards waiting him. But
Mert,
remember the fact that Paul was born as Roman citizen. So basically, the Roman authorities, they didn't want a Roman citizen to be lynched by the crazy Greeks yelling in the theater. And in the entrance of the theater, when the crowd realized that Paul was on the outside, they all stood up, as it was mentioned, Acts 19, verses 28. They all started screaming, the greatest is Artemis of Ephesus. Greatest is Artemis of Ephesus. And after that, what happened? Paul was taken out of the city by the Roman guards and kept in the safe house for 3 days. And after that, he left the city. He never returned back to Ephesus, but when he was imprisoned in Rome, in his luxurious building, he wrote his famous letter that we read today as Letter to Ephesians. Ephesus is very important. Also, John, after the crucifixion of Jesus, after visiting in Antioch, he came and he lived in here. And Roman Catholics strongly believe that John is the person where Mother Mary was entrusted, and he probably brought Mother Mary to the Ephesus. And the mountain which is behind the Ephesus, by the way, related with the first question, these are the slopes where people built their houses, right over there. And at the top of the hill, there's an area where people, Roman Catholics strongly believe that, house of Mother Mary located over there. So the Gospel of John was written in Ephesus. Book of Revelation written very close to Ephesus in Greek island called Hadrian. And some biblical scholars also claim that the first written documents of New Testament, the 3 letters of Paul, letters to Colossians, letters to Thessalonians, and letters to Corinthians, they were all written in Ephesus by Paul as well. So that's why, although we are not really sure, you can say that this is a city where people start to write the New Testament, And this is a city where it completely interesting. That's why it's so important for biblical truth. Right now, we're getting closer to the theater. How's it going? I hope you're enjoying, guys. Welcome. Let's start a little bit because we have been talking almost 1 hour, 15 minutes.
I'm hoping our cameraman can hear me.
Walking,
Can't hear Mert. His microphone earbuds have died.
He wants to do everything in an artistic way, but we need to do the time management a little bit as well. We can
We're gonna go with it.
but I'm going to take you to a very good spot. And now the sun is coming from the west, and you can see the theater in a perfect angle. This is on the mountain. How's it going, Sarah? I hope you're hearing me loud
No,
and clear.
I'm not.
Do you let him over?
Can't hear you, Mert.
Sarah, can you hear me?
No. Oh,
Jeez.
Your earbuds died, I think.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Yeah.
Now you can, but like how long?
Probably about
How-
10 minutes.
How many minutes you haven't heard me yet?
Well, we've been hearing you. It's just been a little bit muffled because I think your earbuds.
All
went
right.
out of
Can you
that.
hear me now? That's an important thing.
Yeah.
Because I can barely hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, let's walk. I'm gonna walk a little bit fast because I knew that this headphone's gonna a little bit earbuds couldn't survive. I will take you to the famous Harbor Street. From this Harbor Street at the end, we have the best view of the Hall Theater. That street is approximately 250 yards long. And guys, use your imagination. 250 yards later, the Gulf of Ephesus is starting. So this is the place where ships were coming, embarking and disembarking their goods. And just Agora is on the left-hand side. And this is the street, by the way. People were marching through the city for entertainment, for fun, for shopping. And now, let's count from the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Grand Theater of Ephesus.
Gorgeous.
It was first built in the 4th century BC, and it was reconstructed nearly every century, and last final changes were done in early 1st century AD. It's a place where roughly 25,000 people could sit and watch all the concerts, acts, and of course, the gladiator fights. Ephesus was an important gladiator center of the ancient period. And later on, starting from the late 60s, this great theater used for concerts. Domino, Pavarotti, Elton John, Sting, Jethro Tull, John Baez, you just name it. Lots of famous people give a live concerts right in here as well.
Wow.
All right, how's it going?
Excellent. So I'd like to open it up to questions. If anybody who is with us on the Zoom call today has questions. Does anybody want to chat with Mert, ask him questions? You guys are all very quiet, so.
Clearly, I can.
There we go. We got a question. Looks like Barbara. Go ahead.
Hey, Mert, so can you tell us again when it silted, the base silted over, and then after that happened, then did they have to construct roads, and did they use carts or donkeys, or how did they transport?
Okay, just like in somehow your sounds doesn't come to me correctly, but you're probably asking about the silting up.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Silting up actually started from 2nd century BC with the
Okay.
arrival of the Romans. But it started to show its effects in the 2nd century AD, roughly 400 years later. There were lots of silts were coming in that time, but never blocked the entrance of the port. But starting from the end of the 2nd century AD, it started to arrive the port as well. So that's why the big ships were not able to come and dock nearby the port. So what Ephesians did, they shifted port 1 mile through the west. But
Okay.
even in the 3rd and 4th centuries, more silt came, and silt invited mosquitoes, and mosquitoes triggered malaria. That's one of the reasons. At the same time, a new capital established at the north, Constantinople. So that's why all the artists, craftsmen, rich boat owners, slave traders, they all start to move through the north and they settle down. And that's why cities start to shrink. And in the 5th and 6th century AD, there were no 300,000 people living here, no 250,000 people, roughly 40, 50,000 people barely living here. And guess what happened? After the 9th century AD, this big earthquake, which was triggered by the volcanic eruption in Santorini, people moved the city 3.5 miles through the northeast, and they settled down and they started to live over there. That's the territory we call Nea Ephesia, which is Neo Ephesus today. So the life still goes on over there.
Thank you.
All right. Any
All right.
from our viewers? Go ahead and jump in if you got a question.
Sarah,
Yeah.
if you speak loudly, I can hear you barely. Wait for a second. I'm going to diseliminate. Wait for a second. Whoops.
It's okay. I think Mert, can you hear me?
Where's my Zoom? Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Maybe I can hear you a little bit
Okay.
if you speak
Well,
now.
I think, Mert, that we have gotten to the end of our tour, and I think you have done a magnificent job. So I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. What beautiful evening light. Just give us a panning shot and show us the sunset. It looks lovely.
All right, Sarah, we can hear you, but we just left to say is me and Volkan. Hello, Volkan, come here. And we'd like to say you, thank you as well. We enjoyed. We learned what are the technical problems like the earbuds. We should maybe bring the second pair of earbuds as well. I hope you enjoyed, guys.
We very
Thank
much
you.
enjoyed it. And thank you everybody for your patience with the
Take
technical
care.
aspect, but this is what we're working out. How do we do virtual tours when we can't do our regular work? So thank you all for being a little bit guinea pigs, but also I hope everybody enjoyed our virtual tour of Ephesus today. Mert, you're a star. Let's do another tour together one day real soon, okay?
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great Friday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.